Yeah, so sit cross-legged, and that could be any shape, this, longer shape or shorter shape, but to make sure you are able to sit upright. And I will always show that again and again, because it's the most important thing I feel we can talk about. It's how we're sitting. And we're trying to not, and Elaine, I would say you might want to even sit on something a little higher if you have that available. Yeah. Maybe sit on, I put the blocks underneath, because if the knees are here, and I'm showing this really extreme right now, there is not a lot of movement availability. So I'd rather sit higher, and then the knees will drop kind of almost below your pelvis. That would be really ideal, just for the sake of what we're doing here. We want to be able to move the hip. Yeah, that looks so much better. Oh my God, great. Okay, so we'll sit, my right foot is in front here, and we're gonna just find our sits bones. So naturally the pelvis wants to roll back and tuck. That's just how it's easier for the brain. But what we're going to do is we're going to really engage the sits bones down and back, and we're going to tilt more forward. And that thing alone, that little tilt alone that could be it, right? You're already done with your exercise. You can just stay here for an hour. No, of course not. But for healthy hips, what we really need more is hip flexion. We're all stuck more in this posterior tilt, and we need more of the forward tilt. So let's put the fingertips on the floor here, slightly in front of the knees, and push your knees, push your legs down. And you can have as much work as you want in your fingertips. Maybe you're up on something, but finding the pressing of the legs and the folding, the creasing of the hip. And then we'll settle the kidneys back a little bit. That means just I'm rounding my spine, especially my lumbar spine, a little more. And that you might feel right away in your core. That pulling back, lengthening, and we're just breathing here, pushing the legs down into the floor. And you could actually also take your hands off. Right? That's an option. It's just more work in your legs. It's really what you're looking for. If this is really, oh my God, I can't do this, put your hands on the floor, right? And then push down into your legs to come up. Let's do this just one more time. See if you can get the pelvis to tilt first. Not the spine first, but the pelvis first. We're rounding the low back. We're going to pull the kidneys a little back, push the fingertips down into the floor, and work your legs down into the floor. Imagine you can make an indentation in your mat with your legs. Easy shoulders, breathing. And then push down to come back up. And then we're going to take the right foot and we're going to put it in front of the left foot here. Yeah. So we're sitting, same idea. I want to try and sit upright, and you can hug your right knee with your hands here, one hand or the other hand. And we're going to just say, I'm going to pull that thigh to the hip. I'm pushing my hands into the leg and the leg into the hands. Let the shoulders soften a little bit. In a way, everything is on right now. Like my shoulders can be on because they're sliding down the back. I'm pushing, and there's probably a big sensation down in that right hip joint. And breathe. I'm actually gently suggesting and pushing into my knee so my thigh bone can be deeper in the hip socket. A lot of times, more times than not, I would say, when something is up with the hip or the knee, there is not enough drop of the thigh bone in the hip socket. It's a little pull out, and the brain doesn't like that. The brain wants our bones to be really connected and tight in a way. And if that's not the case, if there's just a little looseness in the joint, could be an injury or overstretching over the years, the brain starts to make another Band-Aid or another tightness. And that's what shows up. Oh, my hip is tight. But if we get that thigh bone and say, come on, you belong into that hip really deep, the tightness will actually, the brain will let go. It's pretty cool. All right, and let's straighten both legs for a moment. Sitting, slight bend in the knees. You're going to pull your heels down into the floor. You can flex the feet here a lot. And just even feel how one hip compares to the other. And it might be completely different. But check in with that right hip and just see, my right hip feels really good right now. And then let's do the other side. So the left leg is in front. And again, this could be a loose fold depending on your knees, your ankle, your hip. And we're going to initiate by the pelvis tilting forward. You can put your fingertips on the floor and use the hands as much as you have to. Pull the kidneys a little bit back, push your legs down into the floor, and that just feeling that activity of the legs down is going to turn on your whole body a little bit more. And soften the gaze, soften the back of the neck, looking down. Try not to look forward right now. Just look down between your thumbs and breathe. Big breaths. You might think, I want to pull the knees a little bit apart. I'm not pulling the leg out of the hip socket, especially not that right one, right? I'm going to pull actually my thigh bone more into the hip as I'm drawing my knees apart. And that alone, that thought alone, you should be feeling quite a difference in your legs. Push down into the legs to come up. And we'll do one more time. Initiate from the pelvis. Maybe your hands are not touching right now. Shoulders are easy, but again, it's not a big deal if your hands are touching. Maybe with the hands touching, you might be able to increase the range of motion a little bit. You might even go a little further forward. But just want to say the check point is, can I lift my hands up, and where would I end up? Where would I end up in this shape if my hands were not supporting me? And that's where your true, honest range is right now, with the strength that you can support the joint with. Breathing, because it doesn't mean anything if our forehead is on the ground here, 0. We want to support the range that we have confidently and strongly. Push down into the legs to come up. And then you're going to put your left foot on the floor, and we're going to right in front of the right foot, and we're going to use both hands here. You're going to press the knee goes towards the hip. I'm going to push the thigh into my hand, the knee into my hands into the knee. And at the same time, I'm going to say, left thigh bone, you're going to be deeper in the left hip. And we're breathing. Slide the shoulders down the back. And this is this is what we want the leg to be all the time. Really deep in the joint, no matter what we're doing. And I'm going to keep talking about this, hopefully, for the whole class today, how that feels. One of the things that my teacher Doris would always say, and Doris trained with Carola Trier, and Carola Trier trained with Mr. Pilates. So take it almost from the master himself. She always called it counter tension. She called it a pull and a reach. Every exercise we did, she said, can you find the counter tension? And that pull And the push here, like that's where really the muscle, the full on muscle tension is. Very good. Straighten the legs, a little bend in the knees, sitting still on your little pillow or block, and just feel how that changed, maybe, hopefully, just the sensation around your hip joint here. Okay, very good.